Okay, hello guys. Today our topic is about quadratics and completing the squares. Okay, so I believe it's the most difficult part in the algebra. Okay, so because quadratics, sometimes you're not very familiar with this, but for completing the squares, you're harder to find how to do this and how you can solve the math. Okay, so first of all, let's just trying to understand the basics of factorization. Okay, so here you can find there's example for a squared x squared minus b squared y squared. If you want to factorize it, you can find sometimes very hard for you to do so, right? So first we give out the formula that is x squared minus y squared. We can factorize as x plus y times x minus y, right? Okay. So here, like how to do this, you can first using the terms times terms, that is x times x is x squared, x squared. And here is x times negative y is minus xy, right? And here y times x becomes yx, right? And y times negative y becomes negative y squared, right? Okay. So here you can find one is for negative xy, another is for plus xy, right? So they can set we have yx and negative xy, they delete each other. Okay, that is for this. So here we have x squared minus y squared. Okay, that is for here for factorization. Okay. And also find here, the problem is like here to factorize the 16x squared minus 25y squared. Okay, so here you can try to first write in 16x squared becomes 4x squared, and then it's for minus 5y squared. Okay, so because 16 you can write it as 4 times 4, right? X squared you can write it as x times x, and negative 25y squared. 25 also can be divided into 2y times together, right? And also for y squared can be written as y times y, right? So then you can write down the formula as 4x plus 5y, and then as times 4x minus 5y, okay? That is for these equations. Okay, so here we can start, okay, that is for 4x plus 5y, and then it's 4x minus 5y, okay? That is for this. And also for here, what is a perfect square trinomials you can find here. We call the a squared plus 2ab plus b squared as a perfect square trinomials. Okay, so why is this? So a squared plus 2ab plus b squared, we can written that as a plus b squared. Okay, that is for a plus b squared. And you can find once you write it down as a equation that is a plus b times another a plus b, you can find a times a, right, is a squared. And a times b is plus ab, and plus ab times together is plus ab, and plus b squared right here is for b squared. So finally the answer is a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Okay, that is for this. So here's an example, like factorizing the x squared plus 14x plus 49, right? Like there is an example. So first you can say the first time is x squared, last time is 49. So you can find that x squared can be written this as x total square, right? X total square, and 49 can be written as 7 total square, right? And you can find 14x equals to x times 7, the first term times the last term, and then times 2. It's x times 7 times 2, right? So here the equation is written as x squared plus 14x plus 49, okay? So you can use the formula, right? A squared plus 2ab plus b squared. So we can write it as x plus 7 squared, okay? That is for perfect square trinomials, okay? So now let's making a brief understanding about the factorizing the quadratics, okay? So we said quadratics as a form is ax squared plus bx plus c, okay? So first, when a equals to 1, for example, like x squared plus 7x plus 10, right? You can find there's 1 times x squared plus 7x plus 10, right? Okay. So now you can start, you can try to make it become a factors, right? So you can find x squared, now you can write it as x and x is x times x, right? And here, 10 you can write that as 2 times 5, right? You can find we have the factors of 2 times 5. Also, we have some other factors, right? As 1 times 10, right? And negative 1 times negative 10, and negative 2 times negative 5, right? Okay, we have 4 pairs of the factors, okay? And how to make the pairs when they add together become 7? You can find only 2 and 5, right? 2 plus 5 equals to 7, right? This is the only pair making to add it together, right? Okay. And if you have 1 and 10, you can find 1 plus 10 is for 11, right? 1 plus 10 is for 11. And here, negative 1 plus negative 10 is negative 11, right? Also, this we cannot choose it. And negative 2 and with negative 5, we can also suggest it's not a maybe we add together is not equals to negative 7, right? It also equals to 7, right? Okay, so we can only choose for 2 and 5. Okay, so here, because that, we choose a pairs of 2 and 5. So now, open two brackets is x plus 2 times x plus 5. Okay, that is for the equation. How we can calculate this is very easy, right? Okay, so another example, like if we have to factorize a quadratics, like here, for example, like as 2x squared plus 5x minus 3. So now we're using an AC method, right? So AC means first we divide it into two parts, like here, A is 2 and then another is negative 3. Okay, you can find this negative 6. Okay, so after that, you can try to make it to become factors. Okay, so first you can write that as 2x squared plus 6x and minus 1x, and then minus 3. Okay, so here you can just write it as 2x squared with 6x. You can just write it as 2x times x plus 3. And then you can minus 1 times x plus 3. Okay, 1 times x plus 3. So you can set here, add it together becomes x plus 3 times 2x minus 1. Okay, that is for this. Okay. So we can set maybe for here, the factorizing quadratics is very easy to understand it, right? Okay, so you can just factorize trying to making first to become the pairs. Okay, so what is the hardest part is about today's completing the squares. Okay, how we can complete the squares you can find here. First is ax squared plus bx plus c. Then you can first trying to maybe turn into this part as x plus p squared plus q. Okay, this is our final goal. Okay, so how we can do this? So I'll give you an example. Like first, you can find here is x squared plus 8x plus 5, right? If you want to become this x plus p squared plus q, so first you can try to maybe making this formula to expansion, okay? So x plus p squared, you can expand the equation and it becomes x squared plus 2px plus p squared plus q, okay? That is for this, okay? So now you can find here 2px equals to 8x and p squared plus q is equals to 5, right? Okay, that is for this equation. And then you can try to solve it, like p equals to 4, right? And p squared plus q equals to 5. And then you can calculate the q's value as 11 or negative 11, okay? So once p equals to 4, q equals to negative 11, you can set, oh, maybe here, we can write that as x plus 4 squared minus 11, okay? That is for here, after completing the squares. I'm wondering if you already understand for this, okay? X plus 4 squared minus 11. That is very important for you to understand how to do so, okay? Okay, that is for completing the squares. I think it's very important for you to do, and I hope you can just understand it for this, okay? And here are also some deliberate practice for you, and I hope you can just try to solve them, okay? So maybe you can just pause the video and trying to making your thinking for some time to try to solve for these problems. But if you want to listen with me, if you want to do with me, you can just also continue to listen, okay? So maybe let's do it together. For the first problem is to factorize 81x squared minus 11, sorry, minus 100, right? So here you can write that as maybe 81x squared as 9x squared, right? And minus 11, sorry, minus 100, you can write that as minus 10 squared, right? So here you can write that as 9x plus 10, then times 9x minus 10, right? Okay. And the second term's factorization, you can find x squared minus 10x plus 24, right? You can first divide it 24 as 4 and 6, right? So here, divide it as x minus 4 and then times x minus 10, right? Because 94 plus negative 6, if you add together, the final answer equals to negative 10, right? So you can just write that as xx and negative 4, negative 6, and times together becomes x minus 4 times x minus 10, 6, okay. And the second formula to making a factorization, you can find negative 28, right? So 28, you're trying to just factorizing at first, right? So 28 equals to maybe 1 times 28, maybe for 2 times 14, and maybe for 4 times 7, right? So if you divide it, negative 28 is 94 and 7, right? So it becomes as x 94 and 7, right? So the answer is x minus 4 times x plus 7. Okay, that is for the equation. Okay, so that is for the third problems. And for the fourth problem, to factorize 3x squared minus 10x minus 10, right? So here you can try to first like factorizing the minus 8. So minus 8 you can divide it into 2 and 4, right? 2 and 4. And 3x squared is you can just trying to write that as 3x and x, right? So once you let the 4 as negative 4, so here you can try to making an expansion. So that is 3x plus 2 times x minus 4. Okay, that is for the fourth problem. So for the fifth problem, to write down x squared minus 12x plus 10, right? So in the form x plus a squared plus b, right? So first you can try to expand this, and that is x plus a squared plus b. You can write it as x squared plus 2ax plus a squared, and then plus b. Okay, like here, it's for this method. So just compare for two formula equation, like here is for negative 12 equals to 2a and 10 equals to a squared plus b. So a equals negative 6, and now you can put it into the second equation, that is 10 equals 36 plus b. So b equals to negative 26, okay? So the value here for a is negative 6, and b is for negative 26, okay? That is for these equations. Okay, so I hope you can already understand for all the lessons today, and maybe just trying to do some exercise after this, and hope you can do a better job in the future and to truly understanding how to factorize and how to expansion for this. Okay, so maybe that's for all today's lesson. See you next week. Bye.